Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going through a series of self-made video presentations for the Rankin Technical College AWD Application and Web Development 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class. And these that I'm doing right now are based off of our textbook, which is ASP.NET with Entity Framework and CSS by Naylor. Previously, I set up some validation and formatting for the category class. We made sure that the name field was not blank, that it accepted only letters and also blank spaces, and that it was between 3 and 50 characters in length. We put in those changes. All right. Then we saw how we had to migrate those changes back to the database and update the database. And once we did, it was changed so this field no longer allowed nulls and had a size of 50. All right. Then we went back and added in our own error messages. So instead of the category name is required, etc., and this, which was kind of ugly, we put in our own messages. So if it was empty, it said the category name may not be blank. If it was greater than 50 or less than 3, it said please enter a category name between 3 and 50 characters in length. And if it was not starting with an uppercase letter and consisting then afterwards of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and or spaces, we gave it that message right there. All right. So then we checked to make sure, yes, indeed, it ended up looking the way it should look. So now we want to add similar types of changes, but we want to do those for the product class. So as it says, the product class contains properties that require more complex attributes, such as formatting currency and displaying a field over multiple lines. So we want to bring up the models product.cs file and take a look at those changes. So this was our category, so I'm just going to save. And here will be our products. Okay. Now, going back here to our book, notice we want to add our using system component model data annotations. So let's check, and if we don't have that, and we do. So we don't need to put that in again. So that's a start. So let's look at what else is in here. The author says before the name, we want all of this stuff to go in there. So let's just copy it. All right, there's our name field. This is one of the things that we're putting in there. No, that's the name field itself. Display. Yeah, we'll leave that one there. Hit enter and paste those in. All right, so it required, there's our error message. All right. Here the error that we're getting is we are trying to again put that string over multiple lines, which you cannot do. So that fixed that one. Here's our regular, whoops. Here's our regular expression. Again, here's our error message. And again, we want to put that over just one line so you can see all that stuff. So the product name cannot be blank. Please enter a product name between 3 and 50 characters. Please enter a product name made up of letters and numbers only. That's good. So that's for the name, but then we've got to go down now because we have more fields here. Now we want to go over to the description field, and as shown on page 76 of our text, again, cannot be blank. For the product description, the minimum is 10, the maximum is 200, and here is the error message. The regular expression, all right, letters and numbers only, and here this is saying we're allowing for multiple line text. All right, so let me grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard again. And this will go right before our description. There it is. And again, don't worry if we get any error messages like this, because as soon as we put the error message on the next line and make everything, oops, so it's on one line, we'll be okay. All right. Next, we have the price, and this is a new one because we have not dealt with numbers before. Here we allowed numbers in our description, but we're over by the price now. So again, price cannot be blank. Notice the range, 10 cents to $10,000. Please enter a price between 10 cents and $10,000. The type is currency. This looks very similar to what we did or what we have done in the past using C#. So let me grab all that. Again, copy it to the clipboard. Drop that in. Again, we'll probably get a few error messages here, or possibly, no, we're not. Good. All right. Our category ID, remember that question mark means that this can be blank. All right. Let's save everything, and let's do a build solution. And when that comes back, let's give it a few seconds, then we will run it. All right. So it's back, so let's run this. We'll go over to the product field. Products page, I should say. Still loading. All right. So view all our products. Getting an error message. Did not say we should get an error message in there. But I think it's going to be the same problem that we had before, that we may have to go back and update the database. It's funny that I'm not seeing that it's not showing that in here. Oh, yes it does. I'm on the bottom of page 76 in the book. So it says now build the solution, then in the package manager run the add migration product validation followed by another update database. Let's double check this time. We will do that right now. But before we do that, let's look at our product table. All right. And in particular, let's look at the open table definition. All right, you notice the name is of size max, the description is of size max, and the price is decimal 18.2. That will change momentarily. So let's right mouse click, paste, do our add migration. I don't know why it didn't give us all that. It's asking for a name though. It should have said product validation. Kind of neat that since I didn't put the command in completely, it waited and asked me for the rest of it. All right. So now it gave me the rest. I don't understand why, but update minus database. Hit enter. And if we look over here, notice that we are getting more. There's our product validation that was just created. All right. The system does a fantastic job of keeping itself in sync. So if we go back to products again and we open our table definition, let's notice how it's changed. Notice it's 50-50. Surprised that's still decimal 18.2. I guess that doesn't change. All right, but you can see that these indeed have. All right, so the author says to go run the project again, and we want to go over to products, which we will momentarily. Again, there's plenty of ways to get there. You know that by now. All right, we go back to view all our products. We should not get an error anymore. Again, I believe this is taking so long to load because I am, as you can see, I am producing the previous lecture, which really tends to slow my system down. All right, and you'll notice that it's now formatted with currency. And the author says, click on the details link, and you should notice that it's also formatted for currency. Fantastic. Now, the author does mention here in our text on the bottom, near the bottom of page 77, it says, it is possible to use the currency format when editing by using code like this. But the author says that he does not recommend doing that because the price when editing will display with that symbol right there. And it says the validation will fail because that's not a number. All right. We can now check all these, and we will. But if we take a look here on page 78, all right, let's put in exactly what they put in. Exactly what they put in. So we want to create a product here, so let's create new. I'm going to put exactly what they put in here. EE tab. One, two, three, four, five with a $sign, it looks like. Tab. EE. All right. And what you'll notice, please enter a product name between 3 and 50 characters in length. We'll also find that. So if we put in here, notice we're not getting that, but if I keep going and going and going and going, eventually I'm more than 50. So the same thing is happening. Here it's saying it cannot be blank. Here it says letters and numbers only. Here it says that can't be blank. Here it says must be a number. And again, cannot be blank. So we're checking all of them. The other thing with the price is it can only have one decimal place. Let's try putting in okay. Not the same error that they show in there, but So going back to our book on page 78, the author says here, this is a big improvement on our default view and the validation applied to it. However, there are still some issues. The price input still displays as a default error message when a number is not entered, which can be fixed in a couple ways. One way is to overwrite the data minus val minus number HTML attribute by modifying the editor for, and the author shows how to do that. Right here. It says this change must be implemented in each view that allows you to edit price, making it more difficult. An alternative and more manageable way is to use a regular expression in the product class in the same manner by adding a price property. All right, so let's grab that regular expression that we have there. Let's copy that to the clipboard. Let's go back to our code, and the program's still running, so let's stop the run here. All right, go back to our code. There's price, and let's add that, whoops, stop the run here, enter, all right, and add that regular expression. This regular expression allows a number to optionally be followed by a decimal point plus one or two numbers. This allows the formatting of like 1 or 1.1 or 1.10, etc. But now, if we save this and run it again, and if I do what I mentioned to you previously, that is, I view all the products, go over to create, and now come in here. Let's just put in some garbage here. Now if I put it, what, between 10 and 2, there. Now if I put in 3.14.159 and move, now notice, it gives me the right answer, or the right error message, I should say. All right, let's stop the run here. Go back to our code and stop the run here. Go back to our book here. All right. So the chapter basically ends with talking about how validation works, the last 3 or 4 pages of the chapter. All right. Now, the author says here, when we first created the product, it was set up with 2 NuGet packages installed. The ones that are used for client-side validation. That's Microsoft.jQuery.unobtrusive.validation and jQuery.validation.ASP.NET. Model View Controller uses jQuery to perform client-side validation whenever the user navigates away from the input field. The user does not need to submit the form to see those error messages. I never once clicked the Create button and you saw the error messages. Validation, again, will also be performed on the server side once the form is submitted, because client-side validation by itself is not sufficient. It can be turned off, and the user can, for lack of better words, fake out client-side definition. All right, the author says here, to see the effects of server-side validation, remove the following code from the Views Products Create line. So if we remove this line right here, those are the bundles that contain these 2 files. All right, so basically it's saying not to use jQuery to perform the validation. Since it removes those jQuery, JavaScript library files, all right, that would mean that only the server-side code is going to be used. All right. Now, if we run that, and I'm not going to, and we put the same stuff in there, you're going to see the same error messages. All right, you see the same error messages. The only difference is now this is being validated on the server side. Now, when we do this in class, we'll probably will remove that. It's important that you realize that virtually 100% of the time when you're doing something like this, you will validate on the client, and when you get done, you will validate again on the server. It says down below here, this is the bottom part of page 80. The author says, the view files for editing and creating contain lines of code used to display validation messages for each input element and a summary for the whole form. The summary is used for any general error message that the model that are not specific to the input. And they show you some of them here. On the next page, they're showing you the lines here responsible for this stuff. Now, when you've got code such as this line right here, and we could pick out any of them, but that line, all right, it's responsible for displaying the overall validation summary. But the other ones that are more specific, like here, they're used to show any validation messages for each individual property. The Bootstrap CSS class text danger is used to make sure that these things are displayed and displayed in red. That pretty much finishes up chapter 4 of our text. And the author says here, in this chapter, I've shown you how to modify the delete method for an entity with an ID field used as a foreign key in another entity, followed by how to enable code-first migrations with a view for updating the database schema. I then showed you how to seed the database. Finally, we talked about formatting and validation. So we're done, but we're going to save, and when we save, we're going to, as we have been doing, all right, do a save all, but we want to go back to our Team Explorer and go to Changes, all right, and let's see if we go to Actions, View History, we want it to look like this, Chapter 4 completed, all right, so Chapter 4 completed. Learned how to, number 1, delete categories correctly. 2, use code first migrations based on code changes. This was done in coordination with, so not only did we do the code first migration, but we also, with updating the database. And 3, we learned how to perform data validations, including the use of custom error messages, and then finally, oh, I thought there There was something else I wanted to put in here. Oh, we learn how to use seed data to fill our database with data. Okay, anything I missed? That looks pretty good. So let's commit all. We go back and view our history again. There's Chapter 4 completed. All right, so we're getting there. We're making progress. I am going to close this. I'm going to go back to the Solution Explorer, and in our book, in just a couple minutes, I will jump into Chapter 5, which is on sorting, paging, and routing. And I'll be back in just a couple minutes with that.